حبيبنا وقرة أعيننا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد. So it does get late, subhanAllah, in May and June, and at some point Isha will be 10:45. So I don't think we'll continue this between Maghrib and Isha all summer round. I think at some point I'll pull it back an hour before Maghrib, just so that people can, if they have kids and they want to take them home to go to sleep, then we'll do that. But for now, for the next maybe few weeks, we'll keep it between Maghrib and Isha, and then once I feel it's Isha is getting beyond 10:15 or 10:20, we'll pull it back, inshallah. Again, I don't want to bring people from their picnics before Maghrib. Technically, people on Saturdays want to be outside if it's good weather, so I try not to bring them into the masjid before it's dark. But it gets dark at 9:20, so it's quite late at the end of the day. We are now in the third and fourth year of the Prophet ﷺ's hijrah. We're going to be talking about the consequences of the Battle of Uhud. This is how I tell the story. Now, you could tell the story in many different ways. You can just talk about the sequence of events. But my objective is to connect the incidents that are occurring throughout his life ﷺ, with the intention of us learning the lessons that we were intended to learn from what actually happened. After the Battle of Uhud occurred and the Muslims suffered this loss, and the Prophet ﷺ physically was harmed, and many great names fell, the status of Muslims in Arabia was not what it was after Badr. So after Badr, there was maybe a year high where their stocks were the highest they had ever been. They had a lot of respect. People were signing treaties of peace with them. The Prophet ﷺ was able to establish a parameter around Medina where people were safe to move. He was able to actually get some guarantees that the caravans from Medina can make it to Damascus and back, and sometimes to Yemen, without being harmed. But after Uhud, all that changed. After Uhud, there was a general feeling that we bet on the wrong horse, that was a fluke. Badr was it was a one-time thing. It's not sustainable. We should not have signed these treaties, and now people want to make it up to Quraysh by maybe performing certain actions that they shouldn't do. And one of them was the story I told you last week, where they had brought in a mercenary. And Khalid ibn Sufyan was putting together an army that the Prophet ﷺ basically dismembered by sending Abdullah ibn Unais and him taking out the leader. I'm going to share with you today maybe one or two more stories of things that happened right after Uhud as a result of Uhud. And this goes on until the year number 5 at least. So Uhud happened at the beginning of the middle of year number 3. The consequences would continue for the rest of the year number 3 of his hijrah, all of year number 4, and to the middle of year number 5 when the Battle of Khandaq, when the Battle of the Trench occurred, which was in its own sense one of the consequences of Uhud itself. Things changed afterwards, but it was almost 2 years of the Muslims just reaping the consequences of this one-time mistake. And it seems harsh when you think about it that way. It seems harsh that one mistake, not by everyone, but just by a small group of people, could cause such severe consequences for so long. But I think, wallahu alam, that was the lesson itself, that this is how life is. It doesn't mean that these people weren't forgiven. No, they were forgiven on the spot. The people who ran down the mountain, people who ran back, they were forgiven right then. No, they weren't just forgiven. No, Allah did not use the term forgiveness with them. He used the term afu. He pardoned them, meaning this was never going to be spoken of again. None of the Muslims ever spoke of this again. This is a piece I don't think we understand. When you make a mistake that is devastating, it's hard to go through life without it coming up a couple of times here and there as you go along. It's just how this never came up again. No one ever spoke of this incident, of the people who ran down the mountain, of people who went back to me, not once. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said so. I pardon them, that's it. You won't speak of this in dunya, and I won't speak about it with them yawm al-qiyamah. But that doesn't mean that the consequences of this mistake were not going to continue. No, they were going to continue. That piece, if there's some way that I can grasp the consciousness of this younger generation and insert it in, then that would be, I think I'll be doing them a pretty good favor. Just because you repented, just because you said you were sorry and you fixed and you changed your ways, doesn't mean that you're going to walk away consequence-free from the mistake that you made. You still owe your dues. You still have to pay for the mistake, and that sometimes that goes on for a long time. In certain situations, that may go on for a lifetime. And I feel like we're not grasping that appropriately. And just this example here, Uhud and what it caused, I think is important. The second story I want to share with you today, after Khalid bin Sufyan's story last time and Abdullah bin Unais radiallahu anhu, is a story of what became a catchphrase. The Sahaba would use it here for Adl Waqara. And some scholars of Seerah say that the way to say is Adl, not Adl. And some say it's Qarrah with a shadda. I don't know. There's too many differences of opinion on this matter, so I just go by how I heard it from the shuyukh who taught me. Adl Waqara. And these were two tribes that sent to the Prophet ﷺ, a few of them saying, Ya Rasulullah, we would like, we're coming to you as representatives from our tribes. We want to learn Islam. Can you send to us a number of people who can teach us Islam? So the Prophet ﷺ chose the names that you see up there. Sayyidina Marthad ibn Abi Marthad, and Khubayb ibn Adi, and Zayd ibn Dithinna, and Abdullah ibn Tariq, and Asib ibn Thabit al-Aqlah, wa Khalid ibn Khalid al-Laythi, radiyallahu anhum. And some point out a seventh name, but it's disputed, so I just put the six that I know, that we're sure of. They are known till this day as Shuhada Yawm al-Rajiyah, the martyrs of the day of al-Rajiyah. Al-Rajiyah is an area between Medina and between where Adl Waqara live, which is southeast of Medina today. And on the way there is a well called the Well of Al-Rajiyah. And in that area, these 6 or 7 men that were Sahaba who were going with the representatives of Adl Waqara, they were betrayed. There was an ambush awaiting them. They had gone, no Arab man, or woman by the way, back then would walk through the desert unarmed. You're always armed at least with a sword. But how heavily you're going to be armed is depending on why you're going and where you're going. So these men were not expecting to need to actually fight, so they were not heavily armed. Each one was just with their sword. And then they were ambushed in this area. The ambush occurred from the 2 tribes, some supporters and in affiliation with a number of leaders from Quraysh. And once they saw the ambush, they came together, all 6 of them. Their leader was Asim ibn Thabit, radiyallahu anhu. Now before I tell you what happens, I want to point out a few of these individuals. Marthad ibn Abi Marthad is one of the examples in Seerah of someone who accepted Islam young, was under the radar in terms of his fame. Like everyone knows Zubayr ibn al-Awwam, and Talha ibn Ubaydillah, and Ali ibn Abi Talib, names that if you study a little bit of Seerah, you know well, right? But Marthad is not a name that you're going to know well. He was someone who was not, he wasn't known for much. But he was young when he accepted Islam in his teens. He spent the majority of his young life performing a job for the Prophet ﷺ that basically was bringing people from Mecca to Medina, people who could not afford to actually make the trip themselves or did not have enough support to make the trips themselves. I mean, they didn't have either enough wealth or didn't have enough protection. They couldn't make it safely. So Marthad was a large young man. So that's what he did, radiallahu anhu. He'd go back and forth from Mecca to Medina for years. He did this, for years. Until Badr happened. So he started from year number 11 of Bi'tha and did right before the Battle of Badr. For 2.5 years he would do this. And then on the day of Badr, if you remember the story, there was only enough camels to go to where they were going. It was like 150 kilometers. Every 3 had to use a camel. And these camels were not for battle, they were camels for transportation. Not all animals were used for battle. Some of them were not equipped for that. So the Prophet ﷺ, like everyone else, was a partner with 2 other people on a camel. And the partners he had, the 2 partners, was Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu and Marthad. So Marthad and Ali were both 20-something years old, 24, 25, young men. So they said, Ya Rasulullah, irkab, you do this, yani, ride. We don't need to ride. Prophet ﷺ refused. فقال لا أنا يعني أغنى عن الأجر منكما ولا أنتما أحوج إلى الأجر مني. I do not need the ajr less than you, nor do you require it more than me. And he walked 100 kilometers and rode the 50. On his way back and forth Marthad, even after Badr, he would continue to do this task for the Prophet ﷺ. And this is a story that I think is worth pointing out. Because what he did was something that was, as far as Quraysh was concerned, against the law, he would do it in the dark of the night. So we'd go, there were people who want to come to Medina who couldn't afford it. Murtad would prepare all that they needed, their provision and their transportation, the horses or the camels. And at night he would agree to meet with them at a certain place, get them on camelback or horseback, and then he would escort them to Medina, to the Prophet, Medina, the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. This is what he did. So because he's moving at night, he's only going to run into the people of the night. All right, he's going to run only into the people of the night. And he would run into a lady, her name was Inaq, with a profession that I prefer not to point out. She would see him in the night, and she knew what he was doing. And she would tell him, I'm not telling on you, but come to the brothel here with me. And Murtad would say, A'udhu billah. Astaghfirullah, this is zina, I would never do this. But he would run into her almost every time he would go back and forth to Medina. She's in Mecca. So he came to the Prophet ﷺ as a young man, and he asked him the question. فقال يا رسول الله إني كلما مررت في مكة يعني عرضت لي عناق. Every time I go to do this, she's there. She sees me. Like she knows what I'm doing. And she's asked me for haram, and I've said no. But I'm finding this, I'm not sure what to do. So he said, Ya Rasulullah, أتزوج عناق. Do I marry her? So the Prophet ﷺ smiled. فقال يا مرتد إن تابت وآمنت وصدقت وثبتت ننظر. So the Prophet ﷺ's answer was not no immediately. Now, she's a lady who's performing actions that are not inappropriate and haram. And he's a young man who's Muslim. His answer was no. A'udhu billah, what are you talking about? He said, yeah, give her time. If she repents from what she's doing, and she accepts Islam, and she sticks to it, like her repentance is true, then we'll see. Murtad wouldn't live long enough for that to happen. He would pass away on this day. Once he was ambushed, Asim ibn Thabit, because they were not going as a platoon, even though Asim was the leader, it was unexpected, so they didn't organize as quickly as they would want to, because it was completely unexpected. They're going to do da'wah, going to teach Islam, teach the Quran. They were not ready for a fight till the death at that moment. So Asim tried to negotiate with these people who are betraying. Murtad didn't wait. Murtad pulled his sword, and he fought. Radiallahu anhu, he fought until he died. With him, Abdullah ibn Tariq did the same, and with him, Asim ibn Thabit. Once Asim saw that the two men with him went and did that, he pulled his sword as well. Asim, as he is fighting back, would be severely wounded. And he said something before he passed away. He would say, Allahumma inni mittu difa'an an dinik. Oh Allah, indeed I'm going to pass away as I try to protect your message, protect your teachings, protect your deen. Ya Rabb, fahmi li jasadi. Oh Allah, protect my body for me. You see, Asim knew something. Asim saw someone from Quraysh standing in the far, like the people who were ambushing with the archers and the swordsmen. But Asim, as he's fighting back, he sees someone standing there. See, Asim, on the day of Badr, in the war, killed a man called Al-Harith ibn Amr. The wife of that man, or his mother, we don't know, there's a difference of opinion in Seerah, swore that she would not rest until she had Asim's skull in her house. That's what she said. So Asim knew there was a bounty on his head because of this. But because he's going to a group of people that are close by that have asked for da'wah, there was less, and they didn't, betrayal is a big deal in Arabia. There's no law. There was no politics. I mean, there's no, I want you to think, we're living in a country that if someone harms someone else, we call the police. They'll come and they'll arrest and then we go to a court of law. And there's law. There's no law in Arabia. There's no one to go to. Who are you going to complain to if someone does nothing? The only way people can survive is with their word. I have to be able to trust you. You have to be a man of your word. So if you give me your covenant, if you sign a treaty with me, if you agree to something, the only way we can survive this climate is that we have to be able to trust one another. Betrayals were, treason was a big problem. This is something that was frowned upon. And the Muslims would never betray, and they didn't expect or suspect betrayal from people. The reason that this happened is because Adl and Waqara were two tribes that had already signed treaties with the Prophet ﷺ. After Uhud, they regretted it. That's all this is. They regretted doing that. And they wanted to make it up to Quraysh. So they said, we'll lure some of their men out, and then you can do whatever you want with them. So they lured them to the Bi'r al-Raji', to this area, and that's where they were massacred and slaughtered. So Asim saw the man. He knew what they wanted. He knew that once he died, they would want to do something, mutilate his body. So he made this dua, Ya Rabb, I defended your deen, defend my body. يقولون قال فلما, when this whole thing ended, خرج أهل الحارث بن عمرو, the people who from this family of this man who was died, يبحثون عن عاصم بن ثابت. They want to go find his body. فوجدوه قد أحيط بالدبر, which is basically wasps. His body was surrounded by wasps. And I don't know if you know what have ever been stung by a wasp before? I was 5.5. I woke up 6 hours later. This was in Syria. I was a Canadian boy who went to Syria, and I didn't know what I was doing. I got right here in my neck, and I woke up a couple of hours later. I had no idea what happened. My face was this big. Wasps are extremely aggressive, and they're not like bees or smaller. There are certain types of bees and smaller insects that don't, but wasps are extremely aggressive. And so he was surrounded by wasps. فقالوا ننتظر حتى العتمة. We wait until it's dark, because wasps don't linger around during the dark. We'll come back and take his body. قال فأمطرت. And before dark, it rained. فجرف السيل جسد عاصم. And then it rained in the desert. When it rains heavily. It's actually a sight to see, because you'll be walking in a piece of land that's just sand. There's nothing there, and it rains for 15 minutes. Within 25 minutes, green comes from the ground. It's the closest thing I've seen to a miracle in my life, man, because you usually green comes from the ground slowly. Whatever you've planted, it's going to take a couple of days before you see something. It happens within minutes in the desert. And then if it rains, because it rains very heavily, it's like you're seeing ropes of water. So quickly, the sand will open into a mini river, and then water will run. And it picked up and the body of Asim was taken by the river, and they never found him. No one did. Neither the family that were looking to harm him, nor the Muslims later on who went to look to find his body to bury him. No one found him. فقالوا هذا مصداق دعوته. This is the answer of his prayer before he died to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and she never got him. Zayd ibn Dithinna and Khubayb ibn Adi and Khalid, they put down their arms and said, all right, we surrender. They surrendered. They immediately murdered Khalid ibn Laythi. There was a bounty, and they murdered him right then there. So they fight again, and they kill Zayd ibn Dithinna when he fights back. But they disarm Khubayb. Khubayb is not able to fight back. He's the only person who makes it from the group, who actually doesn't die. At that moment, at least. At that moment. They cuff him, and they take him to someone who put a bounty on his head from Quraysh, and he is taken to that family. And he is put... So this is one of the oddest stories probably in Seerah, in my opinion. But it reflects a very interesting aspect of of the human experience and how human being. They had no problem massacring 6-7 men in an act of betrayal to their trust, because they had come in peace and the idea was... But when they brought him to Mecca, they said, well, today, by the way, is just, it happens to be Rajab, the beginning of Rajab. And Rajab, as you know, is Shahrullah al-Haram. You can't kill people in Shahrullah al-Haram. So we're going to wait until the month is over before we execute him. They have no problem the night before massacring 6-7 men. But when it comes to, oh no, it's Shahr al-Haram, we can't do that anymore. This sleazy double standard. This meaningless selective adherence to rules. This meaningless selective adherence to rules that suit you. That are just for show. Yeah? Do you need examples, or the last 17 months suffice? I think the last 17 months should be enough of the selective following of rules, that you make the rule, and then it doesn't suit you anymore. It's not working in your favor, so you don't follow the rule. But then someone else breaks the rule that you were breaking, so you want to hold them accountable for breaking the rule that you are breaking at the same time. But then you'll follow another one, something that has no meaning at all. Yeah. No problem. No problem. Continue. Go ahead. Bomb civilian populated areas. Let them pull out children every day. Wrap them up, 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds, put them in real time, you see them dead. No problem. That doesn't break any of our rules. But God forbid, the actual court of justice that you made makes a ruling that is wrong, and then it's no longer this sleaziness, this corruption. It's corruption. You see, we've been talking about this. Istiqamah is where you're anti-corruption, where you don't allow your personal biases and your personal interests to weigh in on your principled decisions. And the world lacks istiqamah, generally speaking. And these people took a couple of gentlemen with the intent, telling them that ta'alu, teach us Islam, so they came unarmed, not unprepared, killed them all, and then took the remaining. It's not like they took the remaining person and said, we're sorry, we're wrong, go back home. No, they sold him for bounty to a people who were going to kill him and torture him. But they said, we can't do it in Shahrullah al-Haram. That's not acceptable. Yeah, be careful from selective adherence. Be very careful in your life. We're all subject to this, by the way. We're all subject to following a rule that suits us. It's fine, but another rule is not as easy to do, so we overlook that one. You end up with a mutation, like an Islam becomes mutated, and the behavior of Muslims something's wrong. People are walking with limps. People are walking around Muslim, but they're limping because there's basics that aren't being followed. Because you're selectively following, you can't cherry pick from the Quran. It's not like I like this one, not that one. I love this one, let's ignore this one. No, that's not an option of how Islam works. When you accept the book, you accept all of the book. خُذِ الْكِتَابَ بِقُوَّةٍ, take everything in it. أُدْخُلُوا فِي السِّلْمِ كَافَّةٍ, take all of Islam, not the pieces that suit you. There's nothing impressive about taking the pieces that suit you. You're going to do those anyway. The whole point of there being Islam is that you're going to adhere to the pieces that don't suit you. There's nothing impressive about being honest when you pass the exam. I'm not going to praise your honesty when I ask you, did you pass? And you say yes. You say, mashallah, honest. Of course you're going to say yes, you passed it. The only impressive piece of your ethics is if you failed and I asked you, you said yes. If you didn't do the wrong thing and you said you didn't do it, there's nothing. Honesty is not an impressive attribute about yourself at that moment. But if you did cause the problem and you admitted it, then I'll be impressed. Yeah, you have honesty. It's because doing the ethic when it doesn't suit you becomes meaningful, not when it does. Everyone's good when things suit them. We're all angelic when we have good health and good wealth and time on our hands. It's when you don't. It's when you're tired and you're beaten, you're defeated and you're poor and you feel unwell. Do you still rise to the occasion? Do you still hold on to your compassion and your caring attitude and your empathy and your love and your generosity? Or does that all go away? And ethics can't be circumstantial. If they are, they're not ethics anymore. They're not values anymore. They're just preferences. They're preferences. When it suits me, I'll do it. And this is what they did. They said, no, we don't kill him, Shahrullah al-Haram. Really? But it was okay to, what are you doing? But this is the double standard mind doesn't see that a problem anymore. وَيْلٌ لِلْمُطَفِّفِينَ. Mutaffifin. People who play that game. Khubayb radiallahu anhu bin Adi. This is a difficult story to tell, so I may skip certain details because we have children here and they may not want to hear what happens to this poor man. He is taken and he's put in a small room outside of the home of the people who are planning to execute him. And the daughter of the man who wants to execute him, her name is Mawiyah. And she was responsible for just feeding him, keeping him alive in the meantime. Keeping him alive until it's time to kill him. And they have him in shackles, sitting in his own little room. She would say, she's the one who tells the story. The only way I can tell you the story is because she tells the story. She would accept Islam based on this event. Based on what happened that day, or happened in this period, she accepted Islam later. And she went back and told the Prophet ﷺ the details of these stories later. Of course, he knew most of it from Jibreel, but she gave certain details that I don't think were known to the Sahaba. She would say, قال فكنت آتيه بطعام فَأَجِدُ عِنْدَهُ عِنَبًا وَلَيْسَ فِي مَكَّةَ مِنْ عِنَبٍ. I would bring him food, and put his food, and I would find in his little hut where he's sitting, he had grapes, he was eating grapes. And we had not seen grapes in Mecca for months. There's no grapes in Mecca. فَأَقُولُ لَهُ مَنْ أَتَاكَ بِهَذَا. Who brought you this? She wants to go tell her father and her brother that someone's. فَقَالَ هَذَا مِنْ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ. This is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I remember when I heard this story the first time, the Shaykh asked a question. He said, well, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is sending Jibreel or whoever to bring him inab, why not break him loose, maybe? To me, it makes more sense. Instead of bringing, why does he want grapes? He's a prisoner. Instead of bringing grapes, bring, I don't know, a sword, bring a tool that breaks shackles, bring a key. Open him up and send him on his way. You see, since the day of Al-Fil, since Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what happened on the day of the elephant to Abraha, that's it. No more divine intervention to change historical events. No more. That wasn't going to happen anymore. You will get signs of his prophecy, alayhi salatu wasalam, and signs of the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the price that needs to be paid for righteousness was going to be paid in full. The Sahaba paid in full. They put in the full payment for standing by what they believed in, by defending justice and defending the message that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent by. So no, Jibreel was not going to come and set him loose or set him free. This was his fate. His fate was going to be a shaheed like the rest of them for this story to be told. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted him some ease, a little bit of support. That you haven't been forgotten. You have not been overlooked. We still love you. So Khubayb was very calm. There was a child in the house, Mawiyah's kid. He was like, a 3-year-old, running around. Of course, he was not supposed to go to a certain area, and the area was closed off anyways. But as all 3-year-olds, if you have a 3.5-year-old, 4-year-old, they don't listen to anyone, and they do whatever they want. So he would go, and he would break into the area, and he would play with Khubayb. Khubayb would be sitting there, and the kid would come by, and Khubayb would knock a ball back and forth with the kid, playing with the kid. And the kid became very friendly with Khubayb, and Khubayb became very friendly with the kid. And it seemed like Mawiyah didn't know this or didn't notice it for some reason, but daily, because he's there for all the month of Rajab, he's going to sit there for 30 days, so it's going to become quite... Right before the end of the month, when he knew that after they're going to do that to him, he asked Mawiyah if she could give him a razor. فقالت وما تريد منها? What do you want with the razor? I can't give you a razor. فقال لا وإنما أتبع السنة الفطرة. I haven't cleaned up my mustache and fixed my beard and taking away the hair. I haven't done the sunnah for a month now. I want to be. If I'm going to die, then I would like to die in the way the Prophet ﷺ taught us to cleanse ourselves. Radiyallahu anhum. This is how they followed the sunnah. So she said, okay. She asked the father. The father said, yes, give him whatever. He's not going to kill himself. Give him the. So he took the razor and he's fixing his beard and taking off from his. As he's doing this, the 3-year-old comes running and jumps right in his lap. So now he's sitting with the 3-year-old in his lap and he has a razor in his hand. And Mawiyah happens to walk by, she sees it, she almost dies. She almost has a heart attack. And she gasps. في صرة. She stands there, she doesn't know what to do. So Khubayb at that moment, very easy. Take the razor, put it close to the kid. Look, let me loose, or the kid's gone. They would have totally let him loose. They would have unshackled him, given him a horse. He could have galloped a little bit outside of Mecca, put the kid down, and kept on going. Went back to Medina to the Prophet ﷺ. No. I was just talking to you about istiqamah a moment ago. It's not about the end. It's about the means. Now, the end may be that he saves himself and he makes it to Medina. But the means were threatening a child. The means were going to be scaring a kid and his mom. But the end is noble. It's saving a person who is going to undergo an act of horrific oppression. Yeah, but the mean is going to be harming or scaring a child. No. So Khubayb is sitting there and he sees in the eyes of Mawiyah the fear. فَقَالَ أَخِفْتِ عَلَيْهِ. Are you scared for him? So she blurts out, Allahumma na'am, yes. فَقَالَ مَا كُنْتُ لِأَفْعَلَ وَأَنَا مِنْ أَصْحَابِ مُحَمَّدٍ صلى الله عليه وسلم. I would never do this, and I'm one of the companions of Muhammad. No, خُذِ ابْنِكِ. Take your son. I would never harm him. What do you mean? It's no brainer. Harm a kid? I'm not going to harm a kid. What are you talking about? You do you. You're going to torture and murder a man who did that? Fine, you do you. I won't. You see, the difference between righteousness and falsehood, between haqq and batil, is what they're willing to do and what they won't do. If someone sinks to a level of lack of empathy and lack of I don't even know, of decency, really. If you are going to sink to that same level, then what difference is there? What, is there a difference? Then why would Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant you strength and victory and acceptance and rida if you're going to do exactly what that? There's no difference anymore. The difference is that you would never sink to that low. That is the difference. Is that they would betray people. They would slaughter 6 men unarmed for this, who are unprepared, under the impression that they would do that. But Khubayb wouldn't, because that's the difference. If Khubayb did this, then I would struggle to explain to you what difference there is between a Muslim and a non-Muslim. I wouldn't know what to say. For me to explain it by saying, well, they started. When did that ever worked? When has that ever worked? When have you ever succeeded to get out of trouble by saying he started it? I have yet to see it happen once. I know it doesn't work in my house. I don't care who started it. I don't think my son's ever come to me from a problem at school and I asked him who started it. Because I don't care who started it. I care, what did you do? Tell me tell me what you did. I can't control how people will behave. People will behave how people will behave. Learn that early on in life, you live better. You're not responsible for them. Most of the time you can't influence them. They don't listen to you. All you can do is control how you're going to respond or behave. What did you do? And then hold you accountable what you did. Let Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hold accountable the people for what they did. Don't bring yourself into this. Well, they started it. Yeah. That's a really weak argument. It never holds up. It never holds up. Khubayb offers the kid back. He finishes, he gives back the razor, he waits. Very calm. They take him. They make a day out of it. It's not some simple beheading. No. They bring a cross. They bring a cross and they call people. And the public, all the people of Mecca come that day and they stand and they watch. And before they do it, he asks for something. And they tell him, do you have one thing you'd like to say? فقال إن سمحتم لي ركعتين. I would like to pray 2 rak'ahs before you do this. فقال صلي. So he'd pray 2 rak'ahs. And he would do them quick. And he would turn back to them. And he would say, والله لولا خشيتي أن تقولوا خاف من الموت لأطلت فيهما. If it wasn't for the fact that I'm scared that you're going to go ahead and say he's scared of death, I'm worried that you're going to say, oh, he's scared of death, so I would have prayed and given it some time. But I did it quick so you wouldn't think that I'm scared of death. I'm not scared of death. I just want there to be a moment of me. You can imagine what they're going to do. Out of just, for the faint-hearted, I'm not going to go into details. But imagine, what's the worst thing you can imagine? Someone being nailed to a cross, what they did to him. And as they did what they did to him, right before they killed him, he couldn't see anymore. He could barely speak at that point. Abu Sufyan would come close to him, and he would say the following. He would say, أَمَا تَتَمَنَّى أَن تَكُونَ فِي بَيْتِكَ آمِنْ وَمَكَانَكَ مُحَمَّدٍ. Wouldn't you want to be in your house nice and cozy? And the person who caused all of this pain to you to be here, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. فقال والله ما أتمنى أن أكون في بيتي آمنا ويشاك رسول الله بشوكة. I wouldn't want to be in my house cozy if I knew the Prophet ﷺ was going to be pricked in his toe. If he was going to be pricked in his toe, I wouldn't want you, if you told me, here, I'll send you home, we'll fix all the damage, you won't feel pain, but the Prophet ﷺ has to be pinched in his toe. No, keep me. Nothing. Sallallahu alayhi wa. Abu Sufyan would walk away, يقول ما هذا? What is this? والله ما رأيت أحدا يحب أحدا كحب أصحاب محمد محمدا. I've never seen people love someone. What is this? I've never seen people like the companions of Muhammad, their love for him. I don't know what is wrong with them. Before he would pass away, he would say, Ya Rabb. He would make a dua. He would give a dua. He would give his shahada, his final shahada. La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah. وَإِنِّي لَا أُبَالِي إِذْ إِن مِتُّ مُسْلِمًا عَلَى أَيِّ جَنْبٍ كَانَ فِي اللَّهِ مَصْرَعِي. He would say a piece of poetry. Once I die Muslim, it doesn't matter to me how I die, as long as I die Muslim and I don't lose my faith at the end. اللهم أبلغ عني رسولك السلام. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Send my salams to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. وأبلغه أني ثبت على أمره. And tell him that I stood my ground, that I held on to what he taught me. And then he turned to the people. قال اللهم أحصهم عددا واقتلهم بددا ولا تبقي منهم أحدا. And then they killed him. There's a رضي الله عنه وارضاه, the martyr on the cross, Sayyidina Khubayb ibn Adi. There's one more piece of this story that I'm going to share with you. Amongst the people standing there that day was a young man by the name of Sa'id ibn Amir al-Jumahi. Sa'id later on, if you take him, you study him, he became a Sahabi. He didn't live a long time with the Prophet ﷺ, but he became very knowledgeable. He became a person who stood by Abu Bakr, stood by Umar. He actually became the wali of Hims. So I come from Damascus. Hims was just a couple of 100 kilometers north of where I live. He became the governor of Hims, of that city. And during his tenure or during his governance period, he would sometimes have moments of severe headaches, almost seizure-like activity, almost like he had a seizure. And some people saw it, observed it a few times. He was fine, but he would have these periodic, once every couple of weeks. So someone who didn't like him, you know how it is in politics, sent it back to Sayyidina Umar al-Khattab, saying, يا أمير المؤمنين إن واليك الذي وليت علينا يصيبه شيء من مس أو سحر أو جنون أو مرض, something أو صرع, something happens to this man. We don't think he's fit to govern. He was fit to govern, and he continued to govern, but it sparked the story I'm going to tell you. So Sayyidina al-Khattab was someone who was very concerned about these things. He refused to allow anyone to govern who was not appropriate for it. So he called Sa'id, bring him, come to me. What is this that I hear, that you're having these episodes? So he told the story. He said, on that day, the day that they killed Khubayb ibn Adi, I was standing there. وكنا في الجاهلية نظن إذا دعا علينا أحدا وجب علينا أن نخفض رؤوسنا وإلا أصابتنا دعوته. We had a superstition in Jahiliyyah where if someone made dua against you, it was like a wave, so you had to duck. So when Khubayb, who couldn't even see, after he gave his shahada and he sent his salams to the Prophet ﷺ, who received his salams ﷺ, the Prophet ﷺ talked to the Sahaba about the death of Khubayb before the knowledge of it or the news of it came to Medina. He told them, ألا إن خبيبا أخاكم قد أرسل إلي وإليكم السلام. Indeed, Khubayb has sent his salams to me and to you. فادعوا له. Make dua for him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has taken his life. He's gone. He's a shaheed. So Sa'id said that when he made that dua, Allahumma ahsim, all of the people who were standing fell to the ground. Superstition, out of fear. قال وكنت أحمقا لم أفعل. And I was like a young guy who didn't know. I stood there. قال فأصابتني دعوته. And I was hit by his dua. And from that day on, I have this. It happens to me every couple of weeks. قال وما بي من شيء يا أمير المؤمنين. I'm fine. لكنها دعوة خبيب. Because I stood there that day and I watched it and I didn't say anything. I allowed this oppression to occur. وإني أبرأ إلى الله من فعلهم. And I turned to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala seeking repentance and forgiveness from being there that day and not saying anything as I should have. رضي الله عنه وارضاه. And that's the story of Shuhada Yawm al-Rajia, the martyrs of the day of al-Rajia. Later on in the Seerah, every time an act of treason would happen, you know how the Sahaba would communicate it with one another? They would just say, Adul Waqara. They would know. If you yelled out the two names, they knew someone betrayed. A betrayal is happening. Someone's performing an act of treason. It became a catchphrase. Why? Because it was so. Because Murthad passed. Because Khubayb radiallahu anhu passed. Because Asim ibn Thabit. Because Abdullah ibn Tariq and Zayd ibn Dithinna. All people who were highly regarded and well respected amongst their peers at that time. Muslims of high status were taken away from the Prophet ﷺ. It's actually quite interesting to me how many influential people around him ﷺ died during his life and how Islam still survived. It is known that if you want to ruin, for example, for Khalid ibn Sufyan and his mercenaries, all you had to do to ruin the whole army is what? Just take him out and everything else will collapse. because it's a weak establishment. If you think how many of the Sahaba passed, how many high, A-list names passed away during his life, alayhi salatu wasalam. Actually, there's a friend of mine during university who wrote an article on this. And he put them together. And he counted over 55 names, men and women. People like Hamza ibn Abdul Muttalib and Mus'ab ibn Umayr and Marthad. He counted great names of people who died. Zayd ibn Haritha, who died during his life, alayhi salatu wasalam. And what he concluded, because he did a little bit of a comparison between, that there's almost no establishment anywhere where you could wipe out 50 influential people and the idea still live on. The idea collapses because you take out a few leaders, a few key people, it falls to pieces. But it didn't. It didn't. And then when he was taken away, alayhi salatu wasalam, it still continued. That means that he had invested in high quality people. It wasn't the number. It wasn't how many people. It was the quality of the people. It was the investment that he made in these individuals, teaching them and mentoring them and trusting them and empowering them. So they became who they became. So it didn't matter. Every time you took one out, another one would spawn. This is what Abu Sufyan later on would be told by Halaqah, and he would say back to him that there's no point. No matter how many we kill of them, just every time one person, a banner holder, goes away, another banner holder spawns and holds it better than the one before. You took out Zayd, no problem. No problem. Abdullah bin Rawah, Ja'far ibn Abi Talib would pick it up. You took out Ja'far, no problem. Abdullah bin Rawah would pick it up. You took it out, no problem. Khalid bin Walid would pick it up. Every time one fell, another guy who's even stronger would pick it up again. This is the quality of who he taught, alayhi salatu wasalam. You have to invest in people, not in structures, not in people, in human beings. Investing in individuals so that they become an effective part of the group, so they can contribute to the collective. The collective can't function if it doesn't have quality individuals that feel valued. That a lot of the previous generation put work and time into mentoring them and coaching them and teaching them and educating them and empowering them and giving and trusting them and giving them opportunities to go in their life far. And this is not what's happening. Ya akhi, this is not what's happening. I wonder, like 10 years ago, I was way more chill on certain topics. Like way more chill. I'm not as chill anymore on them. I can't imagine in 20 years, if I live 20 years, like I'll be, I don't know. You'll probably ban me from talking about these things because I'll be screaming at the top of my lungs. We're not investing in people enough, not even remotely enough. Too much time and effort and energy and money is being pumped in the wrong domains. There's way too much of it is going in the wrong direction. And it's not being put into making sure that the younger people are being taken care of. You can't expect 2 or 3 or 4 people to do this. This is the effort of a community. This is the effort of a collective. Or else how did Islam survive all of these deaths? You think this is bad? You think this is bad? Let me tell you the story of the well of Ma'una, Bi'r Ma'una, when Mula'ib al-Asinna Abu al-Bara, a very known Arabic hero, an Arabian hero. His name is Mula'ib al-Asinna. He is someone who played with swords as they were toys. He had a reputation. He came to the Prophet ﷺ to accept Islam or to give the Prophet ﷺ a gift. The Prophet ﷺ said, no, I don't accept the gift. I won't accept the gift until you accept Islam. But he didn't. He didn't. But then he listened to the Prophet ﷺ, this man. And he said, you know what? وَلَكِنَّكَ مَا تَقُولُ حَسَنٌ جَمِيلٌ. But what you're saying is beautiful. فَلَعَلَّكَ لَوْ بَعَثْتَ إِلَى أَهْلِ نَجْدٍ مَنْ يُعَلِّمُهُمْ هَذَا لَعَلَّنِي أَنظُرُ فِي الْمَسْأَلَةِ. Send some people to the people of Najd. There's a large, where one of the known kings of the Arabian kings lived. His name is Tufail ibn Amir. So the Prophet ﷺ, right after this event, قال لا والله ما أثق. I don't have trust to send people anywhere. فقال أنا لهم جار. I am the one who will protect them. They'll be under my name. This is in Arabia, this was a big deal. If you were supported, if you were under, it's like a passport, What passport do you carry? Oh. Okay, when I was in Syria, if you showed your Syrian thing, you get slapped a couple of times. Pull out an American passport, suddenly everyone stands there and salutes you, and no offense, please. This man, Mula'ib al-Asinna, was of great status, and people respected him. So he's like, Ana lahum jar, I will protect them. So send them, they'll be fine. So the Prophet ﷺ accepts. He sends the Qurra. There was a group of young men. I talked to you about them maybe a couple of months ago when I talked to you about the building of the masjid and Ahl al-Suffah. I told you there's a bunch of young men who were memorizers of the Quran. They would have 2 or 3 of them always in the masjid, listening to what new Quran was being revealed, and then those 2 would teach the 70, and then that's why, to make sure they all knew all of the Quran that was revealed and they knew it by heart, and then they would go and take Ahl al-Suffah, the people who lived at the back of the masjid who had no homes, and they would teach them a craft, teach them how to build, how to farm, how to be a carpenter and whatever. And then they would help them get out of the masjid, like help them find a job so they wouldn't have to live in the masjid anymore. And they were the only reason that the masjid of the Prophet ﷺ did not become a hotel. Like the only reason the place that you could actually pray in it is because they were helping with the movement of people out. So people coming in, but people were being moved out because of these 70 young men. They had an initiative, a social equity, social education an initiative where they went and they worked on the people who were underprivileged, who didn't have money and didn't have education, and they would help them. Abu Hurairah left the masjid because of them, later on. But there was like maybe 100 and something of them. 70 of them were sent to this large tribe in Najd under the protection of Abu al-Bara. As-Sab'een Qari. They would go. Their leader was a young man. They're all young, all under 25. It was Mundhir ibn Amr. Imagine 70 young men. Oof. That would be a disaster for any community. There's 40,000 Muslims in London. If you take out 75 of their huffaz, there would be nothing left. There would be no masajid left to run. He's going to lose 70, alayhi salatu wasalam, in one day. And yet somehow they're going to survive. It's actually fascinating. The amount of high quality people. I'm going to tell you something that I've noticed. I've been in London for now 12 years. There is a abnormal concentration of high quality individuals in this city. It's abnormal to me. I'm not used. It's too many. For how big the city is, for 500,000 people in a city with 40,000 Muslims, way too many high functioning individuals. I'm talking people at the top of their games, whether it's in academia or medicine or business, or there's just a lot of them, a lot of people. We're an ummah that doesn't lack the number. We don't lack the quality. What we're lacking is the investment. We're lacking in people picking up carrying their weight in what we need to get done. Al-Mundhir ibn Amr, he was known as al-Mu'niq li yamut, the person who can't wait to die as a martyr. That was his nickname. Al-Mu'niq li yamut. That's Al-Mundhir ibn Amr. He was their leader. Their spokesman was a man by the name of Haram ibn Milhan, or Hiram. They differ. He is Anas ibn Malik's uncle, maternal uncle, Haram ibn Milhan. At some point, I will do a session where I'll just talk about Al-Milhan, the family of Milhan, because it's worth talking about them, all of them, the ladies and the men. Actually, more the ladies than the men in this family. So they went over to this man, fi Najd, so it's like maybe a couple of 100 kilometers to the east of where Medina is, and they camped in front of the king's palace, and the king commands his army to kill them. The army says no. Why? Because they are under the protection of Mula'ib al-Asinna, Abu al-Bara. We can't do it. We don't dare do that. So this king is like, fine. He's very frustrated, obviously, that they're not listening to him. So it's going to take him 12 hours to find enough mercenaries to go and murder these 70 men. Right? So in the time being, he has to keep this moving, or else it becomes suspicious. So he tells them, we're preparing a banquet for you, but we would like to speak to we would like your spokesman to come and explain a little bit of Islam to us. So of course, they're setting up their tents in preparation for they're going to educate. You understand? Like the Muslims they sent these men to set up shop for what? To do what? For education. You're like, come, you don't know how to read? We'll teach you how to read. And then you can read the Quran, learn the Quran. We're going to teach you how to make salah, how to make wudu. We're going to teach you what is good in life and what is bad, what is considered to be. This is what they're there. They're setting up shop so that they can do their education. And Hiram has to go over and present the basic idea to the king. So Hiram is like, ready, all right, I'm go. So he goes and he stands in front of this king and he's speaking to him. The king is beyond frustrated. Like he's angry because he had ordered his army to go out and massacre these people, and the army said no. But now he had mercenaries. Yeah, he had enough people to do it. You don't want to do it? Fine. He would do it himself with the mercenaries. It's a horrible story. It caused a war. So you know, when the king did this with his mercenaries, Mula'ib al-Asinna, the guy who protected them, brought his army and they fought, and there was a big war that went on for a couple of months before it ended because he had offered his protection and they didn't respect his protection. A big yani, musibah that would happen. But for us as Muslims, I don't care. I don't care. We lost these gentlemen. So Haram ibn Milham is standing there and he's speaking to the king. Imagine this well-spoken, confident 22-year-old man, right? He's been doing volunteering social work. He's been carrying for years now. He knows everything from the Quran that's been revealed so far. He's well educated in the deen. And he's standing there and he's explaining, this is what our Prophet ﷺ taught us and this is what Islam is about. He has no reason to suspect any form of betrayal. He's in the court of the king. But the king, he had winked at a swordsman of his. The swordsman's name is Jabbar. The only reason I know this story is because this man had some questions after what happened. He had some inquiries. Jabbar is a mercenary. He was just a swordsman. He was a slave from Habasha who was told that if you perform these actions, we'll give you. He doesn't know Islam. He doesn't know anything. He just wants to be free. So Jabbar is standing there with his sword. The king is listening to this haram speak. And he's despising every moment of it. So he winks at Jabbar. Jabbar takes his sword. In some narrations, it's a rumh, it was a spear. He drives it right through the back of Haram. It comes up the other side. Now, Jabbar was a swordsman, or was an executionary, like an executionist. His job was just to execute. That's all he did. يقول فإني أعدمت أنفسا كثيرة. I've taken many lives as this job. فما سمعت يوما مقولة كمقولة هذا الشاب. But I never heard someone who say what this guy said. It's always please and don't and tears and whatever. So this guy, I drive my sword, my spear, into his back, killing him. So he screams at the top of his lungs, Fuztu wa Rabbil Kaaba. I have won, I swear by the Lord of the Kaaba. And then he would die. The king would take his mercenaries and they would kill almost every last one of them. Aside from someone called Amr ibn Umayyah al-Dumari, who would make his way back. He's the one who told the Prophet ﷺ about what actually occurred. The reason the Prophet ﷺ knew what happened is because Amr ibn Umayyah, what was he doing? He had went to a well to fill water for the group. He's walking back he's bringing the camels with water. He looks up, he sees vultures. Arabs know what vultures are. There's death down there. So he doesn't go, he hides, and he stays, and he waits, and he sees what actually happened. So he goes, he gallops back to Medina. Tells the Prophet ﷺ. This was devastating. For a month, the Prophet ﷺ would make dua against them every night. He would make a dua against them during Fajr and during Isha every night and every day. For a month, until the Quran came and said, لَيْسَ لَكَ مِنَ الْأَمْرِ شَيْءٍ أَوْ يَتُوبَ عَلَيْهِمْ أَوْ يُعَذِّبَهُمْ فَإِنَّهُمْ ظَالِمُونَ. Enough. This is not your business. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. This is not up to you. It's not up to you when Allah, أو يتوب عليهم, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows these people to repent. And I think this ayah, this piece is specifically for this man Jabbar. أو يعذبهم, or he punishes them for what they did, فإنهم ظالمون, because their oppression. That's up to Allah. It's not your job to tell me who I should destroy or who I should punish, it's not up to you. He never did it again, alayhi salatu wasalam. In his life, he never. That's why it's important in your dua. Be careful. You're not. Don't over aggress in your dua against certain people or against certain groups. Allahumma, destroy them and have the oxygen taken out of their lungs and the blood stop in their veins. That's not up to you. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to stand by the oppressed, to strengthen the oppressed, to remove the oppressors, to defeat them, and to grant the Muslims the freeness of blood, salvation from blood. That's what you ask for. So the Prophet ﷺ, why? Because of the pain. Because of he lost all these, Ya Latif, another betrayal. Why? Because of Uhud. Because of Uhud. The king of Najd wanted to fix things. He wanted to make it up to Quraysh for not participating. So he murdered them. Anyways, this was very painful to the Prophet. It's not for a long time. The piece of the story that I'll share with you before we have time. We're good? Okay, we're good. 5 minutes. Sorry. So Jabbar was freed after all this. He wanted to go on his way, but then it's like يقول فما استطعت أن أنسى كلمته. I couldn't forget his word. Like I tried to forget the word, I couldn't forget it. It just kept on coming to me in my dream. فزت, I won. ورب الكعبة, I swear by the Lord of the Kaaba. يقول فإني أعلم الكعبة وأعرفها. I know the Kaaba. قال بما فاز. What did he win? What did he win? Aside from my spear going through his back. What do you mean won? يقول فما استطعت إلا أن أعرف. I had to know. قال فمكثت أبحث حتى عرفت من أين أتى. He was so oblivious, he had no idea. He didn't know who haram was. He didn't know where they came from. He had not heard of Islam. He knew nothing. A poor gentleman who was enslaved as a kid and was put in a horrible job all his life. He had very little literacy of anything that was happening around him. But he wanted to know, so he started asking questions. Remember the guys that came and killed? Where did they come from? He kept on asking until they said, oh, they came from a city called Yathrib. It's this number of kilometers west you'll find them. Ask for Muhammad ibn Abdullah ibn Abdul Muttalib. Ask for this man. He'll be able. يقول فشققت طريقي أبحث. I kept on, so I moved until I found. He doesn't know Arabia. The Arabs know the routes to get from one place. He had no idea. And he had no money he couldn't hire someone to support him. He had to make his way on his own, just using the sun, figuring out where west was, until he finally made it to Medina. يقول فأتى المدينة فدخل على الصحابة. He entered. The Sahaba look at him. He's a large, dark-skinned man they've never seen before, with a sword on his side. In Arabia, if you weren't known and you walked into a place, people were going to ask questions who you were, because there was always a fear. فيقول إني أبحث عن رجل اسمه محمد ابن عبد. I'm asking for a man. His name is Muhammad صلى الله عليه وسلم ابن عبد الله. يقولون رسول الله. You're asking about رسول الله. قال ما أدري. I don't know what this means. I just was told his name is Muhammad ibn Abd. فقال هذا رسول الله. تأدب. This is the Prophet. Have adab. Okay, I don't. So he comes to him. So the Prophet ﷺ asked him, what do you want, يا أخ العرب? What do you want? فقال أنا فلان ويوم كذا فعلت كذا وكذا. On this day, these men came, and this very strapping young lad, this impressive young man, stood and spoke. And I was told to do this act, so I killed him. And the Prophet ﷺ, the tears on the Sahaba's faces were running, because they're hearing the story of what happened with their own ears. They're hearing this man say what actually happened, because Amr ibn Umayyah doesn't know what happened. He went to get the water, he came back, there were vultures, he had to leave. He doesn't know what happened. And then there was a war that happened between Mula'ib al-Asinna and the other people. They don't know, but Jabbar told the story. No, they came, they set camp outside, they were preparing. There was some sort of education that was going to go along. But I was brought in and told that this is what we're going to do, so I stood there, and then the man stood there and he spoke and he was saying all these things. I didn't understand a word of what he was saying, and I shoved my spear and I killed him, and he said, and the reason that I'm here is because he said, Fuzd. He said, I won. وَإِنِّي آتِيكَ يَا أَبَا الْقَاسِمِ, because he didn't want to say his name. أَسْأَلُكَ بِمَا فَازَ. What did he win? What did he win? فَشَرَحَ لَهُ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صلى الله عليه وسلم. So the Prophet ﷺ explained to him what he won. He explained to him what Islam is and what Jannah was and what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has in Jannah. يقول يا رسول الله أرأيتني إن فعلت كفعله يكون لي ما كان له. Do you see that if I decide to live the way he did, that I would get what he got? فيقول اللهم نعم عليه الصلاة والسلام. Yes. So this young man would spend the rest of his life fighting with the Muslims and would die on the day of Yarmouk. Years after the Prophet ﷺ passed away. Years later he would. ليس لك من الأمر شيء أو يتوب عليهم أو يعذبهم فإنهم ظالمون. It's not up to you, Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alayka ya Sayyidi ya Rasulullah. It's not up to you. Yes, they killed them, but you don't know. You don't know. Maybe one of them will find his way back. Let it go. Don't worry, the oppressors will be punished. The people who make the mistakes will own up to it, but you don't know. Maybe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants them repentance, and this man was granted repentance. He was accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He became a Muslim, and many of the people, by the way, from Najd, obviously today, accepted that. And that's the story of Shuhada Bi'r Ma'una. That's the name of this story. And with the 70 Qurra fell. I will continue. There's a few more stories that I'll share with you inshallah ta'ala next week. I think the brothers want to do a kahoot, so we'll move on to that. جزاكم الله خير سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا وحبيبنا وقرة أعيننا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. جزاكم الله خير.